Here today to officially introduce everyone to 80RR's very own experts in residence, and they will very shortly share their experiences on how we can expand the pie for all stakeholders in the fintech ecosystem and how we can achieve that through strategic collaborations. But before I invite our panel members to come up to the front, I'd like to give a little introduction to 80RR Fintech Hub and how for the past year we've been working to accelerate the Singapore's fintech ecosystem. So last year, 80RR underwent a little bit of a revamp. Some of you might remember this space used to be managed by Lattice 80, but of November last year, Hong Kong Holdings has actually taken over operations of this space. And so beyond being a co-working space, we've really kind of tried to pull together all the right players to help our members get ahead in the fintech ecosystem. So our members are only one piece of the puzzle. We need support from really good partners, and if not, we wouldn't be able to call ourselves a fintech hub. So over the past year, we've been pulling together all the right people. Apart from the amazing startups that we have at 80RR Fintech Hub, we also have amazing partners. So shout out to Singapore Fintech Association, our resident VC, Corys Asset Management, and of course the Monetary Authority of Singapore, who have all lent us tremendous support to build our networks and presence in Singapore's fintech ecosystem. And so we're extremely happy to hear that Singapore continues to be an attractive destination for innovation hubs. As you know, we have 3 huge banks setting up innovation hubs here, Visa setting a global innovation program here, and we're really excited, for ourselves to be part of the larger fintech ecosystem. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce 80RR's distinguished panel of experts in residence. A round of applause, please, for our panel. So from Singapore Fintech Association, we have Mr. Chia Hock Lai, and from our resident VC, we have Ms. Connie Liu, we have Mr. Chua Chik Ting from UOB, and of course, we are very honored to have government representation, Mr. Raymond Ye from GovTech, and Dave from PwC, and of course, last but not least, Mr. Kwek Li Fei from CNP Law. Okay. So thank you all for joining us. You guys must be exhausted from the past 3 days at the festival. So I'll dive right into the 2 questions that we'll be exploring for today. And that is, beyond addressing explicit problem statements, what are the big guys? Big guys can be anyone. It could be a VC, it could be a bank, it could even be a government agency. What are they looking for in a collaboration with the startup? And the second question, based on your experience and your knowledge, what are the best avenues for startups to connect with these big guys? Yeah, so maybe I'll let Mr. Chia.
Good morning. Okay, I have the honor to start the ball rolling. So what are the big guys looking for when collaborating with a startup? I think actually the most important thing that the big guys are looking for is the human aspect. Because every business idea is likely to go through many rounds of iteration. And you need to pivot from time to time. The key difference will be the people behind the product, behind the team, that can execute all these things. So the people element is very important. So when you are talking to the big guys, you need to show that you know the domain well, you know your product and services, you know the market very well, and you have the passion to deliver all this. So I always remember these 4 F's, so not something vulgar. It's called fail early, fail cheap, fail many, and fail fast. So the people behind the team is very important. So that's my view on the first question.
Second question, what?
Of course, the best way to collaborate with the corporate tribe is to join Singapore Fintech Association as a member. Although we are a very young association, right? We set up 2 years ago. We grew together with Hong Leong. So we were launched the Friday before the first edition of the Singapore Fintech Festival. But over the last 2 years, we already have more than 300 corporate members. 80% of our corporate members are Fintech and blockchain startups. The remaining 20% are the banks, the insurance companies, the big payment companies, the consultancies. Not only that, we connect you to the whole world because we have collaborations in more than 35 countries. So in fact, I think we are one of the biggest fintech associations of the world. So joining SFA is definitely the first step for you to start collaborating with the big guys. Thanks.
I will vouch for SFA. They are very good supporters of 80RR. Okay, so another person who has given us a lot of support is Ms. Connie Liu, and she's from our resident VC Chorus Asset Management.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Connie. I'm from Chorus Asset Management. Basically, we are a VC looking only at investments in fintech and blockchain startups. We do funding, seed funding up to Series A funding. So yeah, apart from me, you can look for my partner, Chris, who is there. You can approach him if you want to discuss your business model with us. Okay. So coming back to the question on what the big guys are looking for, in addition to what Hotlai has said about the human element, that's one of the most important element for a startup to convince the big guys about the passion. And at the same time, I would like to add that the use case and the business model that you will be recommending to the corporation, to the big guys, on how to help them solve teething problems, operational problems, workflow problems with your kind of solutions. So in that sense, these you are able to solve whatever problems that they have within their corporation, and also take time to understand their issues so as to build your business model to help these big guys to interest them in your product. Yeah. So on the best avenues to connect for startups to connect with corporates, of course, being the resident VC of 80RR, part of this big family here, not only working with MES but also with SFA, with a huge global connection. But at the same time, the diversity in 80RR, the members here, also adds value in terms of the synergy as well as the collaboration that all startups can have within 80RR. And for Chorus Asset Management, we also bring together the various industry contacts that we have, as well as various influencers within this ecosystem. Just like today's experts in residence, you will be able to connect with all of us to learn from the experiences to help your business grow. Yeah, that's all.
But later we'll have some networking where you guys can chat with our experts in residence over food. Later.
Yeah, over food is great. And personally, I find myself as part of the community. It's hard to be saying that we're all experts because no one knows everything. So very humble. UOB has been actually supporting and be part of this community actually since day one when this place was set up. Before it was 80RR. We work closely with MES. MES came to us and said, we need banking support, and we came in firstly to solve the first easiest problem that everybody needs. You need a bank account to operate. So we continue to do that, and we will continue to support the community. With that, we offer easy to onboard accounts services. On top of that, I think more importantly, as UOB, we also would very much like to hear all the new ideas and the whole startup fintech ecosystem, what you have out there. Only then we can know, we can learn from each other and also provide, and exchange ideas. So then to the 2 points that is put up there, I think no different from what I said. And well, it's very hard to say bigger is very scary. I think good idea is still very important. The person behind a good idea is also very important. And that doesn't change. With regards to then how someone like us look to say, who do we want to collaborate? One other aspect of it, I would then split it into two parts, right? One, if it's more a front type of idea, I think having a brilliant idea, easy implement, that consumers understand, will be a very good starting point. More and more then, if you look at it, if you start to look at the middle and the back, so if a startup starts to come to us and say, I have this solution and idea that can help you and your systems, do better, more efficient, stuff like that. And it starts to touch that, then we will start to have to look at things like, security aspect of it, connectivity aspect of it, does it work with our system, this kind of stuff. It starts to be more relevant, and we cannot not consider those. And from a fintech's perspective, if they had considered those as well, when we discuss and as they discuss with us, I think that would be very helpful to move the discussion along. To the second point about best avenue for startup to connect to corporates, so we realized that problem, and it's a problem that large corporates, we created ourselves. We have a lot of silos. We are so big. EOB has 25,000 employees across the region. It's very hard to know who is the right people to speak to, right? If you know someone, okay, that's doing this, maybe you approach them and you hope that this thing works, that connectivity works. We still like to promote that because conversations cannot stop. But what we then decided to do as a bank was to create a unit where I am in now. So I look after more corporate, more kind of like strategic engagements with the fintech ecosystem, to then allow fintechs to be able to connect to the bank easier. So by default, if you don't know who to go to, then we help you navigate among all the business units of the bank and the functions of the bank, and do that connectivity for you to have that discussion on things that potentially will be relevant and that create an idea or a solution thereafter. So we provide that role, and we find that to be particularly quite useful to shorten the process. Just one final thing to say, UOB is actually present across ASEAN, big markets in Singapore, of course, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, even Myanmar. So what we also hope to do for the whole startup fintech ecosystem is that if you choose or feel that you are ready or have interest to move to the other markets, and even Greater China, we have the ability and we would like to help you reach that connectivity as well into this market through similar partnerships like 80RR in co-working spaces, in banking services, in connecting to the various parties you may be interested to speak to, like what Hotline has been doing as well.
Thanks, Shik Peng. So now we'll get our government representative, Mr. Raymond Ye, to share with you.
Thanks, Ray. So I think representing the government is actually very hard. You have to be careful of what you say. Right, so maybe a brief introduction to who we are. Right, so basically we have a small team here today from GovTech. Basically we are from the Government Digital Service, GDS in short. We are like an engineering branch in the GovTech organization itself. We are quite big. But basically, everyone you meet here from GovTech is an engineer. So, and we bring here two interesting products that is free for people to use. So over here, my colleague Zhu Yang, you can talk to him about mobile testing solutions. So it's an automated suite where you can run across entire device farm. For myself, I'm running a team that do document notarization on the blockchain, right? So you can talk to me about the open attestation framework that allows you to notarize any documents. So a bit more about the statement, right? So like we're saying, we are from the engineering branch. So one of the things that we do look out is engineering excellence in the product. So I think in general, the government is slightly moving away from being like the one who is off touch with the actual products being built, right? We see a trend with the partnering agencies being more involved in the product development phase, right? They want to know what goes into a product. They don't want to hear you say, oh yeah, we can deliver this, give us this amount of money and this amount of time, in 3 years we'll deliver that. That is too much risk for us, right? And we are moving away from that, okay? And that is why the engineering branch right now exists, right? In which we work together with startups, right, to build products together. So to do that, we want to be first convinced that your product is good, right? And we don't want to buy over something that our engineers, in-house engineers, says that I can build that in 10 days, I can build that in 20 days. It's not convincing for us to pay startups that amount of money to do something, right? You got to have your value has to be there in terms of engineering excellence, okay? And the second point that I'd like to touch on will then be the willingness to work together. So over here we work a bit differently. We also encourage startups to work hand in hand with us. So we have in-house engineers. We work with these startups together to build products. So some of the products that we have built out there are, say, Business Grant Portal, say, Hive Agile Testing Solution, which is the mobile testing solution over here. My Careers Future, which is a job portal that we have engaged multiple startups for different components of the site as well. So we are looking out for things like intelligence, for things like testing solutions and whatnot. And these are the kind of people that we want to work with. So on the second question, what are the best avenues for startups to connect and work with corporates? And in this case, I think possibly big players like government. So we didn't bring the folks from this department from AIP, but I'll introduce them on behalf. So in GovTech, we do have this division called Applied Innovation and Partnerships, which is AIP in short, right? Basically, they engage the industries to find out how they can use their technology on various problems, statements, and use cases by various agencies that we work with. So if you're interested in working together with some of the partnering agencies, I think that would be a good way to get started with. Yeah.
Hi, so I'm from PwC's Venture Hub, so we're slightly different. We started 2.5 years ago, but we are obviously within PwC. So we work with startups and investors, offering all of the sort of traditional services that you'd expect PwC to offer. So we help startups with accounting, bookkeeping, tax, audit, legal services, etc. But we also help with strategy. We help connect startups with corporates, and we also help with fundraising. So we matchmake startups with venture capital investors and other private family businesses. So that's the way we work with startups. I think if you look at the problem, or look at the first question rather, go back to why does a corporate want to work with a startup in the first place? What are they actually looking for? I think if you boil it down, there's 3 key things. I think number 1 is technology. The corporate is looking for a new type of technology that maybe they can't develop in-house, or they haven't got the expertise, or it's going to bring something new to them. I think number 2 is a new product or a new form of revenue stream. And I think third is branding. And unfortunately, there's no getting away from the fact that there are some corporates out there that are playing the startup market because everyone else is doing it too. And if you think that's why they're approaching you, then I'd run a mile. So really, when you're working with a corporate, be clear what your use case is, and what the long-term benefit is, both to you as a startup, but also to that corporate, so that you are truly aligned. So I think that's key. And I think to echo the other points, firstly the use case, but secondly people. I think whether you're talking to a corporate as part of a partnership or whether you're looking for investment, the investor or the corporate is going to look at that founder team, it's going to look at the core people within that team. Do they have the passion, the expertise? Are they really going to drive this product and this business forward? So that's number one. I think number two, I think there's lots of ways that startups can connect with corporates. I think 80RR is a great way. I think an event like today is a great way for you to speak to banks, to service providers, to investors, and there's lots more networking events like this throughout the year, so I think that's great. I think associations like SFA are another great way of connecting. And I think also thinking about who your investors are and using their relationships and their connections, because they're also a great way of linking you up with corporates, and they tend to have relationships at maybe the more senior level within the corporate world. Within PwC, the way we run as a venture hub, similar to the sort of UOB model, I guess, in a way. We have a venture hub team, which is a core team, and we act as relationship managers for the firm. So if you're coming to us for tax and legal advice, I'm not a tax accountant and I'm not a lawyer either, but I'll make sure we get you the right people within the firm who are used to working with startups or VCs for that matter, and make sure you're not the one who has to try and navigate the 3,000 people that there are at PwC Singapore. So really being that relationship manager and enabling you to get to the right people, I think is also key when you're working with your service providers.
Okay, I think everybody seems to have said most of it. And I'm Li Fei. Hi, I'm a partner from CNP Law. That's a law firm. And the firm has been around since 1988, so it's 30 years old this year. We were a traditional law firm. I started the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and ICO team just a couple of years ago, and I wrote my first article on this area in 2014. And I started collecting like a geek I was crypto quite way back. So basically, as a law firm, how we help in this space with startups, just very simply, we talk to everybody who's interested in finding out more about the legal landscape, what they can do, what they can't do, whether their disruptive idea can really, come into a plan that is implementable. So we have various meetings with potential clients. Since January this year, we've met about 200 and over separate clients and potential clients. So our contribution here is we will always be amenable to listening to your ideas. So having said that, also one of the things that I would say as a lawyer would be that you must always regard, if you're an entrepreneur or a founder, you must always regard all your professional advisors as being on your side, which means you must also be open to scrutiny and criticism, because we believe that people who are looking at you to invest or collaborate with you in your startup, they would be more convinced because they say, oh, there's a solid, the ideas guy is good, he's brilliant, he has vision, but he also has a team that can implement and execute, and his support team, all right, it includes actually everybody else here in this lineup, from the regulatory authority, the bank, the ICO advisor, the Fintech connection, and obviously your tax and other professional service provider, all behind you, because only when you have a cohesive business plan, a robust business plan that can be dynamic, because nothing remains in stone. As you know, right now it's a little bit of a winter for crypto and all that, but despite that, we have received a couple of serious mandates for new token generation events. So this winter is, in our view, is good because it differentiates between those the wannabes that are actually not genuine cases and those that are actually have a genuine case and a good business model. Yeah, so we look for team players. We work very well, and we strive to be holistic. So when we meet the client or the startup or founder on the first meeting, we will always identify where the person's weaknesses are. All right. So if they lack any idea of tax, we say you need to speak to a tax person seriously before you have your structure set up. And likewise for all the other service providers, because sometimes they come with baggage or fictional ideas of what they think they can do. All right. So I think the lawyer is not the best person to answer these questions, but basically, just my step at answering question one: what are the big guys looking for in collaboration with the startup? I think they're looking for people who are committed to their business. All right. A brilliant idea is a good start. But a brilliant idea is like a matchstick where you light the flame, and after a while it dies out. If you don't attach it to something else, it doesn't become a blaze. It wouldn't last. So you need a team. You need a setup. So for a setup, you also need to speak to the right advisors. You need to have solid advice. This means tax advice, structural advice, basically advice from the lawyer on what you can do and what you can't do. You need to get your business terms and conditions, your downstream and your upstream contracts in order, so that should anything go wrong, God forbid, it's not going to, basically scupper your business plans. Yeah. Second, what are the best avenues for startups to connect with corporates? Attend more events like this. We always believe in meeting people, even people with different views, because there's nothing like meeting people who have opposing views from you, to actually then convince yourself and test your own views as to are they really worth justifying. Yeah. So in short, I think this is a great event, and my fellow presenters, I hope that all of you, will take something away, and we are all happy to obviously talk to you when the networking starts. Thanks.
Thanks. I think even though we all of our experts and residents come from different industries, it seems like the very common theme of like the human element and like a very simple and brilliant idea. That's something that is common, of course, for all startups. And so I'd like to open up the floor to any question and answer questions that you might have for our experts in residence.
Yes, thank you. My name is Vidyo. I'm from FSA, Financial Service Authority of Indonesia, from Jakarta. I would like to know, my question is to SFE, Mr. Chia and Mr. Raymond at GovTech. Yes, what is actually the role of your association? Is it you supervise? Is it mandatory to all fintech startup to become members in Singapore association? How many associations in Singapore in terms of fintech? Usually, and for Mr. Raymond, I just a little bit understand your role actually from the government view. What is your connection with MIS, Monetary Authority of Singapore? Is it under MIS or you independent agency? Is it mandatory to every fintech new startup is certified by GovTech? I mean, should be pass the examination from your examination, right? And who set the final say in terms of license for the startup fintech? Thank you.
Okay, maybe I start first. Okay, actually for SFA, we have four main objectives. One, providing access to talent, especially tech talent. Because Singapore as a top international financial center, we have a lot of financial talent. We don't have enough tech talent. So whether is it working with the local Institute of Higher Learning, or working with GovTech, or working with overseas institutions, to make sure that the right kind of tech talents are available to Singapore. This is one of our objectives. our second objective is to provide access to capital. But we don't provide the capital ourselves because we are a startup ourselves. Yeah, because for the startups, they need capital to grow, and in Singapore, if you want to be in fintech, especially in B2C, I would advise you to set your scope to be at least at ASEAN level. Because for B2C, the Singapore market is simply too small, 5.6 million. But just our neighbor like Indonesia, 260 million. So providing access to capital. The third objective is to providing access to market demand. Because fintech is still quite new, and a lot of individuals and a lot of businesses are not aware that there are fintech solutions that are quite suitable for them. And which is why one of our activities is to build a lot of fintech bridges all around the world, so that for our startups, if they want to regionalize, let's say if they want to penetrate Eastern Europe, they can go to our Lithuanian counterpart. If they want to go to UK, they can approach Innovate Finance. If they want to go to Israel, we have a partner there. Same thing in Japan or in China. And our fourth objective is to advocate for a pro-innovation policy in Singapore, because the financial services industry is one of the most heavily regulated industry. But for the startups to blossom, they will need pro-innovation policies here that is conducive for them to either collaborate or compete with the banking entities.
Hello? Right, so I think there's a bit of misunderstanding to where GovTech stand in this space, right? So we are not a regulatory body, right? And we are not MAS definitely. So we are statutory board under the Prime Minister Office for Singapore, right? Currently we don't have any working project with MAS, right? And I think what your second question is about, do you need any approval from GovTech? No, you certainly don't need to, right? And if you need any approval from MAS, you have to check out their regulation. But what I'm aware of is that they do have a sandbox where you can be placed under. And I'm aware that one of these startups over here, PolicyPal, they were part of the sandbox and they graduated from the sandbox. I think, not sure how long ago, 2017, yeah, right. So perhaps if you'd like to know more about the regulatory part and also specifically about the sandbox, you can speak to PolicyPal. Yeah, they can bring you through the process. Yeah, or the lawyers, definitely. Yes.
Any other questions? I guess we've come to the end of our panel. And thank you all for joining us. We have actually GovTech is going to be sharing next on their mobile testing solutions. And so we're going to set up, just give us a couple of minutes.